We begin this morning with the latest on those midterm elections and the big names now on the campaign trail with less than a week to go.
All across the country, we are seeing leaders from both parties rallying to support candidates who are locked in tight battles. We're talking about races that could determine control of both the House and the Senate. And as those key races hit the home stretch, we're also seeing record numbers of early voting in some of the top battleground states ahead of Election Day. We're going to start this morning with NBC News senior political editor Mark Murray. Mark, good to have you with us again. So we saw President Biden attend a campaign event in Miami yesterday for Charlie Crist, who's running for governor, and Val Demings, who's running for Senate. It's a state that has become increasingly Republican, it seems, with each passing election cycle. So do you think President Biden's visit will help candidates there close the gap in Florida? Any fears it could be harmful at all?
Yeah, Joe, this is all about getting out the party faithful at this stage. It becomes a turnout game. And obviously, we're talking about the midterm elections, and typically they are a referendum on the sitting president, particularly when you have approval ratings at 45% or below, where President Biden's numbers are currently right now. But he and his White House team have said, hey, we will go into races where we are wanted. And the Democratic candidates in Florida wanted him to really get the party faithful out. We ended up hearing contrasts that President Biden ended up making with Republicans, where Biden was making one of the central arguments that Democrats are going to make. Take a listen to his remarks from last night.
Folks, this ain't your father's Republican Party. This is a different breed of cat. Just look at the facts. When I took office, the economy was in ruins. This is not because of me. It's because of what I inherited. My predecessor was the first president since Herbert Hoover to lose jobs. He had fewer jobs when he left office than when he came to office.
Joe, it is notable, though, that President Biden was in Florida last night, not one of the marquee battlegrounds, particularly for Senate control. We are going to see President Biden hit Pennsylvania, but his absence in some of the other states, places like Georgia and Wisconsin, has been notable.
And meantime, filling in the gap there is someone who's been removed from office for 6 years and has pretty high favorable ratings, and that's former President Obama, who was on the campaign trail in Nevada yesterday for Senator Catherine Cortez Masto. That has become one of the tightest Senate races among all the battleground states. So talk about his possible influence on voters and what his message there was.
Yeah, his message is the same, and so is the purpose, to get the party fired up for November, to really turn out Democratic voters. And of course, as you ended up mentioning, Nevada is one of the central battlegrounds, not only for Senate, but also for governor in the country. And it's actually going to be home to as many as 3, if not 4, competitive congressional races as well, too. And the arguments that President Obama was making to the party faithful was, one, turn out the vote, but he also ended up saying that democracy is on the ballot next week. Take a listen.
The only way to save democracy is if we together fight for it. And that starts with electing people who know you and see you and care about you and believe in you. But just in case you do need one more reason to go vote, consider the fact that democracy is on the ballot.
Joe, he was in Nevada last night. Tonight, he ends up going to Arizona, yet another state with a pivotal Senate and gubernatorial matchup.
You know, let's also talk about Georgia, a state we'll be talking about for sure for days, perhaps for weeks. We're already seeing a record number of early votes come in there. Nearly 500,000 more votes have been cast for this year's midterms compared to the state's 2018 elections. It's also actually close to the kind of turnout we saw in the 2020 presidential election, which is kind of unreal. So what do you make of those numbers? And could it benefit one candidate over another in the tight races there?
Joe, I think all we know is that turnout is going to be sky high in Georgia. And we've seen that in our own national polls, where we have record numbers of people say that they have high interest in these midterms compared to previous midterm elections. When it comes to the early vote and trying to read the tea leaves there, it is important to note that Democrats disproportionately are ones who do like to participate in early voting, either in person or through mail-in ballots, while Republicans, and particularly that Donald Trump diehard diehard Vanguard tends to end up voting on Election Day. And so we see the enthusiasm coming on the early vote, but I don't think it really tells us much on who's going to win. And do also remember that in Georgia, you need 50% or more to be able to avoid a runoff. And so we might not know, particularly that Senate contest, until next month, not next week.
All right. There is nothing conventional right now about politics. Mark, thank you so much.
And now let's turn to NBC News reporter Julie Sirkin in Lansing, Michigan. Julie, good morning. So we're trying to kind of help our viewers see which races to keep an eye on. This is one of them, the race for Michigan's 7th congressional district. It's one we're watching closely. There was a critical endorsement here that crossed party lines. It's also, by the way, become one of the most expensive races so far. Tell us what we need to know here.
Yeah, it has, Savannah and Joe. Good morning. It is the most expensive House race in the entire country. Millions and millions of dollars have been spent mainly, by Elisa Slotkin to defend her seat that she flipped in 2018, and she made magic happen again in 2020. Last night, Liz Cheney was in the room. I was there as well when she walked on stage to a standing ovation from a crowd of 600 people, according to the Slotkin campaign. Just to compare numbers here, they normally see around 50 to 75 people in the room. So this was clearly a huge change when Liz Cheney came to town, her first endorsement for a Democrat ever. And I want you to take a listen to what she told people in the room.
This is, by the way, the first time I have ever campaigned for a Democrat. It can seem as though we're facing a situation that we can't come back from, that we can't influence. We have too often good people say, you know what, I'm out. I'm not going to be engaged and involved anymore because it's just too hard. Our politics have become too toxic. We see situations like we've seen, tragically, the violent attack on Speaker Pelosi's husband over the just last week. And the Republic is fragile.
Look, it was an evening billed as patriotism and bipartisanship. Liz Cheney's endorsement of Slotkin is very notable. She could have endorsed anyone, including Elaine Luria, who sits on the January 6th committee panel with her, a frontline Democrat running in Virginia in a tight race as well. But she chose to come here. And I think it's more than just Slotkin and her opponent, Tom Barrett, who is an election denier, though his campaign very strong to tell me that he is not a MAGA candidate. He wasn't endorsed by former President Trump, which I thought was notable. But also when you look at the top of the ticket here in Michigan, you have the race for Attorney General, Governor, and Secretary of State. 3 Republicans running against them who are all Trump endorsed and America First candidates who have denied the election, the 2020 election results.
Julie, I know that you yourself also spoke with the incumbent, with Congresswoman Slotkin, after that event that we just heard a little bit of there. What's her message to voters as they head to the polls?
Yeah, I did, because look, the room yesterday was packed mostly with an older crowd, and that is indicative of the electorate here in Michigan. However, she does need young voters, including those in Michigan State University down the block from where this event was held yesterday in a high school gym in East Lansing, in order to take her over the finish line. And she told me that much. But I want you to take a listen when I asked her why she thinks Liz Cheney's endorsement will help her in these last final days ahead of Election Day. Listen to what she told me.
I think that we just have a large number of independently minded voters, and they're not going to let just a party tell them what to think. They make their decisions based on their own calculus, and I think that she speaks to those people. To me, the greatest thing that I can do to help the Republican Party find its compass again is to beat the people who are extreme, and I can't fix them. I'm a Democrat. They're the Republican Party. What I can do is say, if you're going to put up extreme people who don't believe in democracy, they're not going to win in my home state.
One thing she kept saying over and over again is that there is more than just winning elections. But at the end of the day, as we said at the top, this is the most expensive House race. So clearly, she does want to win this race. And I should note, she actually outperformed President Biden here in 2020. So we'll see. It'll be really close.
It certainly will. Julie, I also want to ask you about what you think it is that voters care about here. So actually, more than 1.1 million people have already taken part in the state of Michigan in early voting. What issues are on their minds? What issues are turning them out? And in these cases, getting them out early?
There's no doubt the economy and inflation, like in other states around the country, is crucial here, especially because we're in a manufacturing area. I mean, General Motors is literally down the street from where I am. So especially for Slotkin, that's a huge electorate for her here. But when you look across the state, crime and abortion are also tying for number 2, according to some of the latest polls we've seen come out of this state, and also according to voters that I've spoken to on the ground and back in Washington, of course, who tell me that in the entire country, those issues are top of mind. Here in Michigan, Lansing is one of the most dangerous cities in the country. There are others that hit the top of the list nationally in Michigan alone, but abortion, also a key issue. It's actually going to be on the ballot on Tuesday. Voters are going to be able to decide whether they will enshrine abortion protections in Michigan state constitution. Alyssa Slotkin told me that that is key, too, to see what Democrats will be able to win across the ballot on that day.
All right, Julie Sirkin in Michigan for us. We'll be watching. Thank you so much.
New polling shows voters in several battleground states are not sticking to party lines. Instead, they're splitting the ticket, voting for candidates in both parties. And their votes could be the deciding factor in some of this year's midterms. NBC News correspondent Dasha Burns explains.
Have you ever split your ticket before?
Never.
I don't think we have.
In the Philadelphia suburbs, Daniel and Jacqueline Devine are parents of 2 with 1 on the way. They're registered Republicans, but won't be going all red on Election Day.
So you're planning to vote for Oz for Senate, but Shapiro for governor.
Yeah.
Why not Mastriano?
Well, Shapiro's shown that he seems to be more of like a moderate politician. He's experienced.
Do you worry Mastriano is too extreme?
Yes.
In the race for governor, some traditional Republicans like the Devines are leaning away from their party's nominee, Doug Mastriano, criticized by Democrat Josh Shapiro as extremist.
My body, my choice is ridiculous nonsense.
Curious, what I know about Mastriano comes from Doug Shapiro's advertisements.
Looking at the Senate race, what pushed you towards Oz instead of Fetterman?
So I think that Fetterman, during the debate, he wasn't able to say what he was going to do and how he was going to solve the specific problems.
In Pennsylvania, it's not just a smattering of voters. Several unions are splitting endorsements between parties in the state's top races. Pollster Chris Borick says it's about who's on the ballot.
Why are we seeing this trend now?
I think it's in some place a reflection of the parties going to the extremes.
In the governor's race, polling shows Democrat Josh Shapiro leading his Republican opponent by a wide margin, while the Senate race is neck and neck.
What if the candidates that are selected are just unacceptable, that even by your standards, you find them not meeting the quality that you want? Candidate quality opens the door for split ticket voting.
Polls in other states like Georgia, Wisconsin, and Arizona also show one party could win the race for governor, while the other wins the Senate seat.
So, day 1 of construction today.
Day 1, Dasha, day 1.
Rob Bresnahan, a real estate developer in Luzerne County, PA, feels like he has to get creative to find some moderation.
I'm a split ticket voter because I think that the political divide is too far. So I guess the concept would be to kind of make a blended purple.
Borick says split ticket voters could be the difference this election.
We'll see most people stay with their party, but in the end, in determining the outcome, this group of voters could be pivotal.
A group of voters for whom candidates matter.
In the final stretch here in Pennsylvania, we're going to see a lot of action, a lot of big names in this state. President Biden, former President Obama, and former President Trump will be here on the same day, stumping for their candidates.
All right, Dasha Burns, thank you so much. Now, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham faced a major loss as the Supreme Court weighed in on that high-profile case involving election interference in Georgia. The court rejected an appeal from Graham to throw out a grand jury subpoena for his testimony in Georgia's probe into misconduct around the 2020 presidential election. Graham will now have to testify in the investigation and answer questions about the phone calls he made to Georgia election officials. According to court documents, that questioning could happen as soon as November 17th. Now let's turn to the economy. And later today, the Federal Reserve is expected to raise interest rates by 3/4 of a point again. It's its 6th hike this year.
It's part of the central bank's mission to rein in 40-year high inflation, which is pushing up prices at the grocery store and the amount you are paying for utilities. NBC News business and data reporter Brian Chung joins us now with more on this. So, Brian, the market seemed pretty certain we're going to see another hike today. I think one of the big questions is looking forward. Could the size of those hikes be smaller? What's the expectation?
Yeah, again, the expectation for
today, at least, is that they will deliver the fourth consecutive 75 basis point or 0.75 percentage point interest rate hike. But of course, the question naturally is, what will the Fed chairman, Jay Powell, say in his press conference at around 2:30 p.m. today with regards to what they might do in future meetings? There's one more meeting for the end of this year that'll be in mid-December. And the question is, maybe would the Fed start to make those interest rate hikes smaller? Think of this as almost landing a plane, right? You don't land on the tarmac at full speed. You have to slow that plane to make sure you don't hit the tarmac too hard, which is why there's some chatter on Wall Street that maybe they could start to slow, but still raise interest rates, but at least slow the pace of those interest rate hikes, maybe beginning in that December meeting.
Absolutely. So looking for any clues of what you might see in December. I also want to ask you about job openings. They unexpectedly rose in September. Now, on Friday, we're going to get the October jobs report. Are any of these numbers indications that could help us see, hey, maybe things are in better shape? Maybe they do mean that we do lower that interest rate hike. What do you think about these?
Well, without kind of splitting the hairs, what we know broadly from the job openings data and likely from the report that we'll get on Friday morning as well, which is expected to show perhaps around 200,000 new jobs added in the month of September, is that the labor market still looks strong. The unemployment rate is at 3.5%. That's the lowest we've seen in about 50 years or so. So right now, the inflation side of the story is just absolutely crushing American households. But the labor side of things, Americans still have choices for jobs right now. And the question for the Fed is, as they raise interest rates, does that make businesses want to reverse on that strong labor market trend, right? Maybe start to take down those job postings, start to perhaps lay people off. It's not happening right now, but that is a concern as the Fed continues to ratchet those borrowing costs higher.
Are there signs that the rate hikes so far are having an impact on inflation? And then what do we expect the impact to be for this next rate hike on everyday Americans?
That is the golden question here, because what we do know is that it takes time for the Federal Reserve's interest rate hikes to bleed through to higher credit card rates, higher mortgages, other types of things that people have to borrow money to do. And that doesn't happen overnight. The Fed began hiking interest rates at the beginning of this year, but some estimates are that it takes 9 to 12 months sometimes to see the full impact of that on inflation, on the labor market as well. So we might not see the impact of what they did in March until December this year, which is why the Fed has to be very careful not to hit that tarmac too hard. You have to try to time that, make sure you kind of position yourself well for that landing.
That makes it hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Much indeed.
A lot of people are wondering and stressing. All right, thank you so much.
Now to the latest in the attack on the husband of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. The suspect has pleaded not guilty to attempted murder and several other charges in a California state court.
Yeah, 42-year-old David DePape is being held without bond. According to court documents filed Tuesday, DePape told police officers at the scene that he was on a, quote, suicide mission and had additional targets. For more, we're joined by NBC News correspondent Aaron McLaughlin in San Francisco. Aaron, good morning. Thanks for being up early there for us. So what more do we know about the suspect's so-called self-proclaimed mission, and what about those additional targets?
Hey, Savannah, that's right. As you mentioned, that court appearance yesterday was a short court appearance lasting less than 15 minutes. The suspect, 42-year-old David DePape, appearing in an orange jumpsuit, his arm in a sling, having been dislocated, according to his attorney, during the course of the arrest. Court filings showing more details in terms of DePape's intent when he entered the Pelosi home. He said that he was sick, he told police, of the lies coming from Washington, that he was there specifically for House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, but that he also listed a number of other potential targets, a number of other federal and local prominent officials, including a local professor, according to court documents, although those documents not naming the name specifically, but that's all part of the prosecution's case to deny him bail. That bail hearing is set for Friday later this week.
So, Aaron, San Francisco's district attorney said that based on statements and comments from DePape, the attack appears to be politically motivated. So what more are we learning about that? And what are DePape's lawyers saying about that?
Yeah, that's right. The San Francisco district attorney saying that she believes this is politically motivated, that, as I mentioned, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi was the intended target when he broke into the House behind me. His lawyer in a press conference yesterday saying that he's going to be exploring the possibility that his client was influenced online. Take a listen.
There's also been a lot of speculation regarding Mr. DePape's vulnerability to misinformation, and that's certainly something that we're going to look into, that we're going to delve into as his defense team.
Are you saying he's a victim to the influences of social media?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that's something we're going to delve into.
Two law enforcement officials telling NBC News that there is evidence online that DePape was sharing extremist views on a website. Joe.
Aaron, also the Washington Post is reporting that cameras actually caught the break-in at the Pelosi San Francisco home, but that no one was watching them. Tell us more about that, and then also more broadly how Capitol Police are responding, what this means for their safety.
Yeah, there are big questions, Savannah, about the security arrangements at the Pelosi's residence at the time of the attack. We know that a private security officer was not there at the time of the attack. It's also unclear whether the house was even alarmed. Yesterday, Capitol Hill Police putting out a statement saying that they are going to be reviewing not only this case, but also more broadly whether or not they need to be increasing the number of security measures in light of the political climate. I have the statement from the Capitol Hill Police chief here. Let me read you part of what he has to say. He said, "We believe today's political climate calls for more resources to provide additional layers of physical security for members of Congress. This plan would include an emphasis on adding redundancies to the measures that are already in place for congressional leadership," declining to go into specifics on what those redundancies will be, given, again, the nature of this political climate. Back to you.
Oh, absolutely. All right, Aaron McLaughlin, thank you so much.
Time to get a check on your morning news now. Weather.
Which means that Michelle Grossman joins us in studio now. Hi, Michelle. Good morning.
Hi there, guys. Great to see you. And we have a tale of two seasons. Feeling like winter in some spots, feeling like late fall.
Yeah,
maybe
it's
at late summer, early fall. It's warm here. Yeah, exactly. It's even warmer in the middle of the nation. So I'll show you that. But we're going to start with the cold side because we're looking at some snow, and we're going to talk feet of snow in some spots. 14 inches is expected. We're adding another storm later on this week, so we could see 2 feet of snow in some spots. This is what it looks like on radar right now. Where you see the blue, that's where the snow is falling. It will be heavy. The winds will be blowing, so we're going to see drifting snow as well. Lower elevation rain. Could see pockets of heavier rainfall. Where you see the brighter colors, that's where we're seeing the heaviest rainfall. Then you see some pinks and purples kind of popping in. That is the freezing precipitation. So winter-like on the West Coast. It's all due to this cold front that's moving onshore. We've seen storm after storm, sort of a train of storms over the past week or so. We're going to continue to see that as we go throughout the next week, too. So rain continuing from Washington to California. And this is good news, though. We need the rain here, but we're seeing days of it. And then we're looking at that heavy mountain snow in the Sierra, also the Great Basin, the Cascades, also the northern part of the Rockies, the central part of the Rockies. You're going to get into heavy snow as you head towards tomorrow. So that's tomorrow. The cold front advances into the Rockies. We're looking at another Pacific storm hitting the Northwest. That's going to add to the snowfall totals, and that will add to the rainfall totals as well. Winter alerts posted for much of the West here. We're looking at a winter weather advisory. That is in the white. So slick travel, poor visibility, pink. That is your winter storm warning. That means that snow is happening right now, and we're looking at blowing snow as well. So we're going to continue to watch that today. Your snowfall forecast, there's a lot of it, a lot of higher elevation spots seeing some snow on this Wednesday. And we're looking at the pinks and the purples. That's indicating the highest amounts of snow. Lower elevation rain, notice around the Four Corners, portions of Utah, Colorado seeing some heavy rain. And we could see some flash flooding as well. So there's a cold front. Out ahead of the cold front, it's warm. It's humid in some spots, but it's dry right in between. So we're looking at some really dry conditions, also gusty conditions. And that's why we have a fire threat from the Central Plains into the Northern Plains. Where you see the yellow, that is the likeliest spot of where we could see a fire. And if we do see one, it could expand pretty quickly. Severe threat. That's not today. This is tomorrow. So what's going to happen is that cold front's going to move through some warm air. It's a southerly flow, so there's a lot of moisture to this. It's going to be humid, and that's where we're going to see the chance for some severe weather. We haven't talked about severe weather too much in the past few weeks, but we could see winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour. Could see some damaging hail, also a couple of tornadoes. Where you see the yellow, portions of Kansas, Oklahoma, into Texas, we could see some severe storms. That includes Friday, too. So Oklahoma City, Dallas, 18 million people at risk for winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour. A few tornadoes are likely. That's going to be the biggest threat, and also could see some damaging hail. Now, this is the setup here. We have the jet stream lifted so far to the north. What that means is it allows all this warm air to come in. It pulls off the Gulf, so it's giving that moisture too, and that's why we're expecting that severe weather tomorrow. That area of high pressure pumping in that hot air, and kind of that dip into the west, that's letting in that cool Canadian air. But we're looking at temperatures so above normal for this time of year. 77 in Bismarck, 76 in Minneapolis. I cannot say this state without thinking of Mr. Fryer every single time. No matter which show I'm working on, I think of your dad. But the record there is 72, so we're going to break some records too.
Yeah, he was enjoying. I talked to him the other day on Halloween. He was enjoying the weather.
Still
he was
fishing?
Fine. He's good. Yeah, I don't know if he's fishing. He's already actually thinking about ice fishing. So,
yeah, he's moved on.
See, that's what I'm ready for.
Ice fishing?
Winter, cold. Yeah, exactly.
Ice fishing with Savannah.
I didn't know if you did it.
Do that story.
All right,
That's great.
okay.
That'd be fun.
Writing that down. Mike,
Mr.
you got
Fryer.
that? All right.
Exactly. All right. Thanks, Michelle. See you in a bit.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.